Hi there, and welcome from Ventura, California to today's webinar, A Pricing and Process Blueprint for New Car Success, sponsored by vAuto and hosted by webattract, the leaders in thought leadership webinars. My name is Lori Dearman, Senior Webinar Producer with webattract. I'll be one of your moderators for today's session, and in just a moment, we'll be introducing our featured presenters as today's webinar is about learning a more consumer-focused pricing and sales process. You'll also have an opportunity to have your questions answered at the end of the presentation during the Ask the Experts panel session with both of our panelists. Now, we've invited you, along with a diverse audience of over 200 professionals registered across 37 states, all to learn a new way to win in new car sales. Now, before we get started, John Griffin, Vice President of the Performance Management Software Division at vAuto, would like to take a moment to welcome you and tell you what he hopes you'll get out of today's webinar. John?
Thank you, Lori. Yes, I want to thank everyone for taking the opportunity to join this webinar today. I'm sure I know many of you. I'm John Griffin, Vice President of Performance Management for vAuto. I want you to know that the goal of today's webinar is to help you get ready for a better way to stock, price, and promote new vehicles. We know there's going to be some challenges strategically as you move over to this model, and we want to begin to prepare you for that. While we won't be focusing on the actual software of Conquest, the Conquest system today, I do want to thank everyone on this call that has signed up for Conquest. We appreciate the opportunity to expand our business relationship with you. Today's webinar will feature Mike Rikis, CEO and founder of the Rikis Group. We invited Mark as today's webinar presenter because he has a very specific vision for the direction of the new vehicle marketplace and what direction it's going to go, where dealers will offer more realistic first pencil prices online and sell their cars differently to a new breed of customer. After Mark's presentation, I'll talk a little bit about Conquest and discuss some things you'll need to think about before your dealership goes live on this system. With that, it's my honor today to introduce Mark Rikis of the Rikis Group, who will share a pricing and process blueprint for new car success. Lori?
All right, thank you so much, John. And folks, before we get to Mark, let's go quickly to an interactive poll because we would like to hear from each of you on the following question. Do you post your transaction prices online for both new and used cars? And in this case, you can select all that apply because the options are new cars, used cars, or don't currently post either. All right, let's take a look. Okay, I'm showing 59% saying new cars, 82% saying used cars, and 18% don't currently post either. So thanks so much for weighing in on that. I think it'll be very helpful for our speakers as they go through their content to have that information. So really appreciate it. And at this point, I must say I am very excited to welcome our featured speaker for today, Mark Rikis, founder and principal of the Rikis Group. Before we get him on, allow me to say a few words in the way of an introduction. Mark Rikis' career as a successful entrepreneur, auto dealer, consultant, researcher, and thought leader in the automotive industry has been the result of his lifelong passion for innovative thinking and applied performance technologies. Beginning as a second-generation automotive dealer, Mark began with an early focus on performance improvement and implementation of results management process in the dealership operating environment. As a result, he was soon providing management consulting services to dealers, suppliers, and manufacturers, founding the Rikis Group in 1989. Since that time, Mark's become a highly regarded expert on progressive retail automotive practices. Mark's a frequent contributor to Ward's Dealer Business Magazine and other industry periodicals, and he's been widely quoted in USA Today, Wall Street Journal, Business Week, and the New York Times. Mark's a graduate of Arizona State University with a degree in business administration and is a resident of Los Angeles, California, just down the road from me. Welcome to the webinar, Mark. It is such a pleasure to have you with us today. How are you?
I'm great, Lori. Thank you. And thank you and John for allowing me to share some ideas with this esteemed group of people. And again, my goal clearly is to help you all understand how to use Conquest a little better and get some good best practices for your dealership as well. So we're going to talk about re-engineering the sales process, a roadmap to a limited negotiation sales model. And as John mentioned, you'll have to change your first pencil to some extent to be highly successful with Conquest. So this is about a limited negotiation sales model. A little bit about the Rikers Group. We've transitioned over 150 franchises to either a limited negotiations, an LNS is limited negotiations, or a pure one price process. We've also worked with Lexus on best practice development. We've developed over 50 modules for Toyota regarding improving dealership profitability. We've developed a wide degree of training programs for American Honda, genuine training for Volkswagen. We've developed new and sales management courses for Ford. I'm also a partner and founder of Digital Airstrike, Green Dealer Support, Send Me a Friend, and I'm very proud to say I was one of the original partners in vAuto before we were bought out by Auto Trader. So I'm going to start with a business case for change. If you look at most of the dealerships out there, you're going to find typically the top third of my sales force does a really nice job, sells me double digits consistently. Then there's the middle third that stops selling at a certain level of sales, typically between 8 and 11 units. They don't get better, they don't get worse, and we don't fire them. They hit that comfort zone. And then the bottom third in most dealerships churns every 60 to 90 days. The problem with this model is that bottom third sees over half of the new vehicle prospects. So because my top third works off more repeat and referral, and my middle third becomes complacent. So when you think about it, people going into a new car showroom, over half will be meted and greeted by somebody who's not committed to our industry and won't be in our industry for long, and therefore they're going to get a substandard sales experience. Some of the challenges of today's model, most dealers are trying to improve last century's model rather than completely re-engineer it. Last century's model is somewhat of a four-square type model. Also, one of the problems with the more traditional model is the inability to attract high-quality sales consultants. Also, one of the problems with the more traditional model is it's management-centric rather than sales consultant-centric. If you look in your dealership, you're going to find one manager for every 2.5 sales consultants. In other words, if you have 10 sales consultants, you're going to have 4 managers. If you have 20 sales consultants, you're going to have at least 8 managers. And we count everybody with the title of management. That would be F&I managers, GMs, GSMs, desk managers, used car managers, and if you've got a BDC manager that sets appointments for the salespeople. We're the only business that has this level of load, if you will, of management cost on the dealership. And with margin compression taking place, transaction costs going up, this is one of the things we need to address is how do we get the salespeople more empowered so we can change this ratio more to 1 to 4 and 1 to 5. There's a number of dealerships we work with that, again, have either cross-functional management, and 40 out of about the 170 dealerships we currently work with have salespeople taking the process A to Z. In other words, doing the entire sales process, therefore driving down transaction costs where this ratio and then jumps to about 1 to 4, 1 to 5, 1 to 6. Also, there's limited supply and demand and high demand for people with great negotiating skills. So we're paying high wages for narrow skill sets. So a desk manager is worth a lot of money because of their desking ability, F&I managers with their ability to negotiate, closers, etc. So again, rather than be cross-functional, we tend to put our management team in silos, making it a very expensive model to administrate. One of the biggest challenges, I'm going to talk much more about this during this webinar, is finding qualified sales consultants. What we're really looking for is people with natural sales skills, people that can sell anything, and we bring them into our business and teach them how to sell cars. One of the problems is people with natural sales skills are not seeing and that's people in their mid-20s to early 30s, are not seeing their peers, their friends, relatives, neighbors go into retail auto sales and be highly successful. Therefore, if I don't see my peers go into the business, it's less likely I'm going to consider this as a career path. Also, this is somewhat shocking based on research that's been done by the Rikers Group. Women make up less than 7% of the auto sales force. And let me share with you why this is the case. Number one, they don't like the way they are sold cars. They feel that often the negotiation process in the more traditional vein is more like arguing as opposed to negotiating. They also don't feel they're respected enough for the homework that they've done before they get to the dealership and feel the process is starting over. And then finally, if they come in with a male, almost all the process is directed to the male as opposed to the actual car buyer, which would be the female. So they get turned off by much of the traditional process. Also, another reason that we don't see a lot of female salespeople is it's an old boys club. They're not made to feel welcome when they come to the dealership. There's the huddling and swearing and scratching and all the kinds of things that guys will typically do rather than make them feel welcome in the store as an equal. Also, your managers may not have the right skill sets to manage women. Women need, there's different skill sets. For example, women tend to talk in stories. Therefore, listening skills of your desk managers is very important. Women are not gunslingers. They prefer to be much more accurate in their information sharing. Therefore, better training and coaching skills are important. So again, managers need the right skill sets to develop women, which are somewhat different than the ones to develop the typical male. And hours are an issue, but that was the fourth related issue, because when you think about it, women doing real estate, women working in malls, jewelry stores, there's a lot of checking people in hotels. There's a lot of activities that take place that take long hours, so that was number 4. Also, you need, if we're going to attract more Gen Y, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about Gen Y in just a moment, and women, especially housewives, which are the perfect people to bring into our dealership, who are embedded in the community and are mature, they're not going to consider a job in auto sales as long as we have 50-plus hour work weeks, a command and control environment where the salesperson is hopping between a guest and a desk, commission-only selling, and a sales process where they aren't empowered. So if we're also by definition, if you want to populate your showroom floor with good negotiators, you've got to go find them. And our society doesn't produce enough good negotiators to populate dealership showroom floors. So we need to look at how do we change the model to attract better salespeople with natural sales skills. I also want to talk a little bit about, especially Gen Y, how they create their expectations when coming to a car store. One of the key is basically on other retail establishments that they've done business with. So let's use Apple for a moment. When they come into a dealership, they're expecting to see geniuses. They're going to be paying 10, 20, or 30 times more easily than they paid in an Apple store for a vehicle. And therefore, they've done a lot of homework. The average per Gen Y, or in particular, and most people buying cars today are spending at least 9 hours, if not more, doing research. So they don't want your salesperson to confirm what they already know. They want them to elevate the knowledge. And this puts a lot of stress on the ability to train your salespeople literally to become geniuses. They want an ease of purchase. They have short attention spans, especially Gen Y. So they want a very time-sensitive sales process that values their time. Also, they want great online support. Again, putting stress on your different electronic programs, as obviously your dealership website being one of them. Also, what impacts their experiences is Starbucks. And I would submit, I go to Starbucks somewhere in the world almost every day, and I get a better meet and greet from baristas than I would in most dealerships. And these are minimum wage type people. Also, they have to have great product knowledge in Starbucks because there are so many ways to make drinks there. And they're very efficient in how they manage their traffic to minimize wait time. Again, coloring expectations. And then finally, Amazon, which has a wide selection, easy to order and easy to return. So these are some things that are coloring the expectations of Gen Y, which I'm going to talk about right now. Today, Gen Y was born between 1980 and 1998. There's about 80 million of them. 2 out of every 5 auto shoppers today are Gen Y. Now, they're buying about 25% of the vehicles, but many of them shop for their family members, and therefore that's why 2 out of every 5 auto shoppers are Gen Y. This is important. Obviously, 75% of Gen Y plan to buy or lease a car in the next 5 years. There's 80 million Gen Yers, meaning about 60 million of them, they're all driving age, of course, are planning on buying a car, which will be the dominant buyer now going forward. Also, social media is important. If you don't have 4 stars or more, you're less likely to get leads. They don't really care if your dealership is across the street from them. They don't care if your inventory selection is better than others. They're going to start out with reviews, if you will, and especially star ratings. And what you can expect is that if you're consistently under 4 stars, over time your leads are going to diminish. So paying attention to social media and review sites is critical. I'm going to offer you maybe the most important aspect of what I want to share with you today right now, and that's how we work with our dealerships to gain a competitive advantage online. When a lead comes in via the internet, what we teach from the Rikus Group, and again, I really want to emphasize this is what I believe to be the new world. We want to respond to that lead by saying, how would you like to begin the transaction? Would you like to start from home? Would you like to set an appointment? Or would you like, how would you like to proceed? And I'm going to tell you, virtually everybody's going to say, I want to start the transaction from home. This, again, is going to cause competitive advantage for those who will do that. And again, if you're applying Conquest and having a market-based price, you can start this transaction from home. Rather than avoid price, you want to build value. The goal really is to get the consumer who's sending in a lead to get you to want to meet the person on the other end rather than just set an appointment. So BDCs will be sub-optimizing going forward and not get the competitive advantage. And offering the ability to transact from home does a number of good things. Number one, it telegraphs transparency, which is great. Number two, it gives the customer choice, the prospect choices, which is wonderful. But the most important aspect of what I'm just sharing is the ability to get people on the telephone. We know that's a key goal of an incoming internet lead. If I can get them on the phone, I have a much better chance of transacting. So when they say, yes, I'd like to begin the transaction from home, you say, great, send an email back saying, great, I'm sure you've got a lot of questions for me. I've got questions for you. What would be a good time to talk and exchange those questions? You will get almost everybody on the phone, which is where you want them, and get a chance to sell your dealership, to sell the benefits, and sell the salespeople. Again, not having a BDC handling all your leads with the goal of trying to set appointments will lose out in most cases as more dealers go to this model. A little bit more about Gen Y. 61% influence their parents' buying decision. They demand transparency. Our current dealership staff is aging in many cases, and so hiring Gen Y is a competitive advantage. So just to recap this business case for change, the majority of variable compensation dollars are flowing up to middle management. Sales consultant turnover remains high. Customer expectations are rising. Our industry isn't attracting women, college-educated people with natural sales skills, and I'm going to talk about recruiting in a little bit. Gen Y is changing the world. Are you ready? And I would also suggest when you look at your store, if you're like most dealerships in the country, we've lost a generation of sales management. Think back 10 years ago, how successful were we in bringing in mid-20, 20-year-olds to sell cars for us and stick around in our dealerships. If we were highly successful, number one, we'd have a number of salespeople in the early to mid-30s with a book of business, getting a lot of repeat business. And number two, we'd have the majority of our sales managers in the early to mid-30s looking more like today's customers and today's employees. So that means we need to look at changing the model. I'm going to now give you some more mechanics about a limited negotiation selling model using empowered sales consultants. The mechanics of limited negotiations are you're going to have a market-based price, and again, this fits perfectly with Conquest, typically with a third-party reference, whether that reference point is KBB, whether it is Edmunds, whether it's TrueCar, something that's up on the web that is a third-party reference that you can take people to and say, here's how we developed our pricing. You determine how much negotiations or wiggle room you're going to have. Let's just call it $200. So if you've got $200 of room to negotiate, you're only going to drop once. This is a one pencil process, if you will. So it's not dropping $50, $50, $50, $50. It, in fact, is dropping $200 one time if you're going to negotiate. However, if the salesperson does not build enough value to maintain that market-based price, and they negotiate for this $200, they lose about half their compensation. You've got to build in an incentive, and I'm going to give you a compensation plan in just a little bit. You've got to build in an incentive for them to hold to the market-based price, which obviously will improve your grosses. This is really about sort of counterintuitive. This is about improving front-end gross as opposed to diminishing front-end gross. Often when you think you post a competitive price, it has to be the lowest price, and that is clearly not the case. Now, if you're not comfortable with the salesperson doing the negotiations, then the manager comes in. No salespeople are allowed to negotiate, and the manager comes in, and for them, it's also a one pencil process. Having said that, both parties lose some income if they move off the market-based price. So that's some of the mechanics of that. One of the things that I would recommend that you all do as you're waiting for conquest is to determine what builds the most value for customers in the sales process, and rank order those, what builds the most value, and then determine, are we delivering these value drivers on a consistent basis with every customer that comes to our dealership. This is a list for you. This is what we think is a great list as far as value drivers go. You may choose a different list, but what we think most people are looking for is a competitive price, a pressure-free environment, complete transparency. They want to play the game with the cards face up. They want a process that's simple, fast, and delivered by empowered sales consultants. So again, it's somewhat counterintuitive, but if you add value to a transaction, you can charge more. So this is about, again, adding significant value for the customer. So the limited negotiations model has everything you want when you go to retail. If you're going to a restaurant or any retail establishment, you want a process that's fast, simple, transparent, fair, and one you feel in control of. The traditional process is long, and let me give you a data dump about the long sales process. The Rikus Group has done research for 3 different manufacturers, and we found that 70% of the cars are sold in 30% of the time the dealership's open. That's usually 2 evenings a week, and that can change by season. It's weekends and the last 2 days of the month. You're going to typically sell 70% of your cars during that time period. On average, it takes 4 hours or more to sell a car. So 70% of the cars are sold in the 4-hour time frame or longer. Aside from customer satisfaction, this is a productivity killer. Again, a very important point. So if it takes 4 hours to sell a car on a Saturday, I am limiting my top salespeople to selling 2 cars. If I can drive the time down closer to 2 hours, I double my capacity. So in an era where we're struggling to find good salespeople, in many cases we have too many salespeople due to the poor use of time in the sales cycle. So this is, again, on average, by the way, the average customer is abandoned or left alone 11 times. Again, much of that is negotiation. Some of that is going to check on F&I. Some of it is finding keys, pulling credit, going to get a demo. So 11 times is the average people are left alone. Also, the traditional process is complex. If we can obscure information, we will. It's inequitable. The people that like us and trust us the most, we charge the most. The people that take most of our time and give us the worst CSI scores are the ones that get the best deal. And nobody wants to be controlled any longer. What I'm going to do, and this is how to differentiate your sales process, and this is also how to reinforce the benefits of not having to negotiate. Obviously, you have the ability to do that, but you really want to make sure that you negotiate as little as possible to maintain your grosses. So again, I'm always asked, how do you do that without losing customers? So I'm going to take you through this exercise fairly quickly, give you some word tracks on some key ways to differentiate your sales process. Now, you certainly don't have to use what I'm recommending, but what I would recommend, if you don't change your sales process where it's highly differentiated literally at every step of the sale, if you're just the same 10 steps as everybody else, in fact, then people are going to shop long and hard for the best price. So let me give you some differentiators. The meet and greet starts with options. Are you here for price information, product information, or both? Again, people like options. They can select what they want, and obviously want word tracks to back that up. And you also want to say, what would you like to accomplish today? Again, giving them options and moving forward. You should have a concept statement or a business philosophy statement. I'm going to share with you what one sounds like, but you should definitely create a business philosophy statement on your own. It might sound like we've been in business for 30 years and we've been very successful. We believe our success is based on listening to our customers. So as you look around, you'll find one price clearly posted on every vehicle. In essence, we've done the negotiations for you. And the reason we've done that is to save you time and to save you stress. We're proud of our prices. That's why we put them on every vehicle. And if our competition comes to look at our prices, we don't have a problem with that because we're proud of the way we price our products. Also, it might be important for you to know that I'm not a commissioned salesperson. So whether I sell you the most expensive vehicle or least expensive vehicle in inventory, I don't make any more money. So in 30 seconds, I just explained how long we've been in business, why we made the change. Every vehicle is deeply discounted. We've done the negotiations for you. The 2 key drivers of what the benefits are, we're saving you time and saving you stress, and how I'm compensated. We then roll over to a visual aid, a flip chart of some sort. It can be electronic, it could be tablet, or it could be just a regular flip chart. When you overview a process, people will do more of what you want them to do, and especially Gen Y and women, which are a significant percentage of your buyers, want to know what's coming next, how do I prepare myself as well. One of the we also want to reinforce the benefits of not having to negotiate, again, saving time, never having to pay more money than your neighbor for the same great product. So there's reinforcements to the concept, if you will. But one of the things that we believe it should be done at this point is switch the whole conversation to payments. In the visual aid that we recommend, there is a flip chart, and in there's a rating scale. People can self-rate where they feel their credit rating is, and that allows the salespeople to give payments. So the salesperson says, I don't want to be a budget buster. Every family's got a budget. So as I show you vehicles, I can give you payment estimates now that you've given me where you feel your credit is rated at. And what we want to do, again, is get people on vehicles that are more affordable more quickly. It's my belief if you get people on more vehicles that are more affordable more quickly, you sell more cars. And I believe everybody is sensitive to payments. So these will be payment estimates. Also, we're a big believer in sit-down written needs assessment, again, differentiating your dealership. So I want to sit down, take the time to understand the consumer better, ask them some questions about buying motivations, and this gives me a chance to bond as well. I'm out here in Los Angeles. I can talk about the Dodgers, something to just get off the car for a little bit and find some common ground. Product presentation, you need a pricing story. We're about educating rather than defending. Again, I think this is a critical element, whether you do anything with the Rikers Group or however you want to differentiate your business, you need a pricing story. So this is about educating rather than defending. In most cases, the first pencil, when it's high, the customer says to the sales consultant, that's at least $500 higher than I was expecting. Where did you get the price? And the sales consultant's back on their heels. What I want the sales consultant to do is say, let me share with you how we price our vehicles. We use the third-party pricing guide, which could be like Edmunds. We also get information from our manufacturer. If you're a Toyota dealer, it's called a TOPS report. Get information from our manufacturer about what the vehicles are being sold at our competing dealers, and we mystery shop our competition all the time. We couldn't put our best prices on our vehicles unless we knew they were highly competitive. So you need a pricing story as a differentiator. We like the idea of an interactive trade evaluation. This is where the manager rides with every guest on the trade, and in essence, this is where the TO is done. When you think about it, it's the perfect place. You've not served up numbers, and the horse isn't out of the barn. So I want the manager, other than use vAuto to help come up with the valuation on the trade, I want the manager to do three things while riding with the guest. Number one, I want to find out if we're on the right vehicle. So I'm going to ask, what vehicle did you look at? I looked at a Toyota. Great, Toyota Camry. Great, how did you like the way that Camry drove? Now I know if there's been a test drive. I also want to ask, is that Camry equipped the way you want it equipped, or would you like me to show you a vehicle with less equipment, or maybe even a certified pre-owned? It's a takeaway close. So now I have an opportunity for the guest to say, it's equipped the way I want, or show me something different. Again, I win no matter what. The second goal is to make sure we're on budget. So I'm sure my salesperson talked to you about not being a budget buster. We want to make sure this vehicle fits your family's budget. Does this vehicle, the way it's equipped, fit your family's budget? Or would you like me to show you a vehicle with less equipment, or possibly a certified pre-owned? Again, a takeaway close. I win no matter what. They're going to say, it fits my budget, or show me something else. Finally, I want to say, does this experience, is it different than any other car store you've ever been in? And if they are lukewarm on the experience, then I'm going to go back and do my concept statement. When I ask for the order, I'm not going to get as much pushback if I go through all these processes. Everybody's going to try to negotiate. There's no one that won't try to negotiate. But if I do my sales process correctly, I'm not going to have the same vigor as far as pushing for negotiations. And finally, I want to do shopper education. I want to tell the consumer, you know how easy it is to get a price in our dealership. When you go to the next stop, simply say to your salesperson, I would like a price in writing. Here's the way I want my vehicle equipped. I want the price in writing signed by management, and I don't want to see the manager. Now, if that happens in your dealership, what would you be doing today? And then you say to the consumer, and if they won't do that for you, is that a place you'd want to do business? And every customer, of course, is going to say no. So talking a little bit about pricing, pricing needs to become a core competency, just like it is with vAuto. Pricing buckets need to be established on the new car side, and typically it's the GSM that is setting the grosses with input from others. And today, again, and we saw that poll, if you're not posting your new car prices, a competitive price online, and I realize some manufacturers don't allow that, but those who do, if you're not putting a competitive price online, it's less likely you're going to get any internet leads. Also, you want to adjust prices, again, very similar to how you use vAuto. You want to adjust prices weekly based on market conditions such as age, color, and equipment packages. So some structural changes to the dealership. We need to go to a 40 to 45-hour work week. I don't have time to explain how to get there, but I'm talking to you from Southern California, where we're open 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, and we can make that happen. To attract people with the right stuff, again, college-educated people, I need at least a $2,500 training salary for at least 2 months. And typically, if you're going to hire people with no car experience, the cheapest thing you can do is pay them $2,500 not to practice on your customers. We don't like gross-based compensation plans. I'm going to show one that's not gross-based, but the reason we don't like it is, number one, you're paying the most money for the easiest cars to sell. If anybody can explain that to me when this webinar is over, why you pay the most money for the easiest cars to sell, that would be great. Also, over half of your deals are minis. So I know I'm on a mini deal. I'm going to be less enthusiastic in trying to make the sale. Also, gross compensation plans are difficult to explain to non-auto applicants, and I want to you're rewarding salespeople to make as much money as possible off of everybody they meet, and most people are not built that way, especially Gen Yers and women. So here's a framework for compensation. You want to pay a salary based on a 90-day rolling average. So if I get 36 units, I get $800, and again, this is just a framework. You certainly can change the numbers. 48 units is $1,000. I want a flat fee per car delivered. Typically, it's anywhere from $125 to $175. And if I negotiate, if they come off the posted price, this is what they lose half of. Also, so there's a flat fee per car sold. Again, I want a reward for volume, and we think 12 is the average that a salesperson should do. So 14 units would drive 750, 17 units 1,000. Again, it's a framework, and we believe salespeople should be affordability counselors and trained in F&I so they can be more intelligent in talking about affordability. Therefore, we want them to protect their back ends. $20 for a service contract, $20 for a finance or lease deal, $20 for a service contract, and $20 for other F&I products. I'm going to pause for just a moment. Lori, I think you want to jump in and do another poll.
Absolutely. Folks, coming up on your screen, are your salespeople being paid on commissionable gross profit? Is it yes, no, considering changing? So feel free to tick more than one box. All right. I'm showing 74% saying yes, 24% saying no, and 11% considering changing. How does that stack up with what you were expecting there, Mark?
That's about what I was expecting. I thought maybe a little higher in the considering changing, but again, a lot of that is not having the information of what would I change to, and of course, how do I protect my gross, which is what we're trying to establish today. All right, I'm going to give you some ways to recruit salespeople now, and this is a Craigslist ad. You notice it's looking for customer service representatives. We don't say automotive. Women and men because I want more women, college preferred because I want more people that are college educated, hospitality industry, waitresses, bartenders, hotel workers make great sales people. 40 to 45-hour work week, stable family-owned business. So your benefits are here, chance to make $40,000 to $50,000. You can run this ad for free, and it typically draws 60 to 70% women, 60 to 70% college educated. I'm going to give you a number of low-cost to no-cost ways to recruit salespeople. Again, I hear all the time, it's so difficult to recruit good salespeople. My belief, recruiting is easy, maintaining and hiring is hard. So here's some ideas. If you, every one of you has a Facebook page, you should absolutely be posting every week now hiring on your Facebook page. LinkedIn and Career Builders are a great way to go. You should have a Why Work Here video on your website. You want to e-blast your owner base every quarter. If you like buying a car here, you'll love working here. Service department mirror hangers with now hiring, and a robust employer referral program, and a placard saying now hiring, and I would put that placard on the showroom floor, your customer lounge, and in your service drive. I'm going to talk, I've got about another 5-6 minutes of presentation just to give you a level set. But quickly, I'm going to talk about how do I compete against deep discounters. I hear all the time, well, I've got one guy or gal that's screwing up our marketplace for everybody. Here's how you compete against them. Number one, if your sales process is very similar to theirs, it's hard to compete. So differentiate your sales process. Number two, I want my sales staff to look like my customer base. Therefore, I want 50% women or more because that's my customer base, and about 25% or more Gen Y. So again, we talked about recruiting, compensation, and some initial training. I want my customers to allow them to transact from home. They're never going to get to these deep discounters if I start the process, because these deep discounters tend to be people that only want to set appointments so they can get people in the store and have their way with them. I need to explain my business philosophy everywhere. So having a video on your website in particular that explains how you do business, along with other ways of explaining that, including on social media. Money back guarantee. I've got about 150 to 170 franchises we work with. Every one of them has a 72-hour, no questions back, money back guarantee. Rarely do they get a car. Again, we've been doing this for years with our clients, and I want to tell you, I would make my dealership home with a money back guarantee, because these people are looking to get some outliers and have some really high grosses on a few people every month. And the fact is they can't offer a money back guarantee because they're going to lose their high grosses. Having a pricing story we talked about. I want to mystery shop the competition and say, I'm going to XYZ dealership. That would be your dealership, and ask them, why shouldn't I go there? I want to hear what they're going to say about me. We talked about shopper training. If you can't get a price in 10 minutes, you're in the wrong place. And we like to separate the used vehicle transaction and make it an offer to purchase. So they know that, in fact, whether they buy the new vehicle from us or not, that, in fact, we'll buy their used vehicle. Going a little quickly here, but I'm getting near the wrap-up. So I always get asked, if this fails, why does it fail? Let me give you the 4 reasons it fails. Number one, a lack of leadership commitment. If you're going to move to a process like we're discussing, which is limited to no negotiations, you need to have the commitment that says, if I can't make this happen, I should get out of the business. So I need a lot of vision and a lot of commitment from store leadership. And if you don't have that, I wouldn't make significant sales process change. Number two, sales managers, this is the biggest reason it fails, is middle management, sales management not buying in. And this is a big change in their life. This is moving, and their compensation obviously would change a bit. They're not going for gross as much as they're going for volume, although with reasonable grosses like we determined. And many of them got to their stations in life by being good negotiators, and that's their comfort zone. So you're going to have a real challenge of buy-in with middle management, if you will. You need to be a learning organization. This is about out-presenting the competition. So if this is about training, and more training of all types of training. So you need to be a learning organization to out-present the competition. And then if you're pretty successful early on, we find a lot of dealerships that skip key steps of the sale, and that, of course, will unravel the process. So this transparent purchaser of today, if you're a great V-Auto dealer today, if you're negotiating about much more than $100, you're missing leads. So you're pretty much should be a limited negotiations already on used. We know 50% of the purchasers are women. We know they dislike negotiations. Gen Y today is 20 to 25% of the purchasers. We know they dislike significant negotiations. So I think it's 80-20. I think 80% of the people are looking for a great experience and will pay slightly more for that great experience, and 20% are just going to be out grinding and looking for the best deal possible. I'd like to end with these 5 questions, and every one of the dealerships out there should aspire to make sure you can answer yes to every one of these 5 questions, and they are is your dealership sales process significantly different than your competitors? Do you have competitive advantages that create incremental sales? Does your negotiations model attract a diverse, educated sales force with natural sales skills? Is your sales process built around what the majority of customers want? Also, would you want your mother, wife, or daughter to buy a car from your store without your help? So I'm going to turn this back to Lori and let you take it from here.
All right. Thanks so much, Mark. And folks, you can see Mark's contact information on this screen there, and we'll be putting it up again at the tail end of the presentation. So if you don't get a chance to jot it down now, we'll get it to you at another opportunity. And Mark, Thanks again. Don't go too far. We'll have you back for the Q&A at the end. Before we do get to that Q&A, allow me to bring back John Griffin to share a few words on the Conquest philosophy and its applications, as well as some concluding remarks. So over to you, John.
Well, thank you very much, Lori. Our Conquest philosophy is one, as it says up there, is to implement a proper pricing and promotion process on the right vehicles for your market so that it'll help you stock and sell more vehicles in less time at better margins. It's based on the same philosophy as our provision suite. It's a velocity-based philosophy and reflects Dale Pollock's vision for proper pricing and promotion. We truly believe, and I would say we know, that the turning and earning of the right cars means more profitability. Let's take a minute here and look at some of the new and used vehicle parallels. First off, inventory strategy, and everyone that's on provision knows how committed we are to having an efficient strategy on our used vehicles. Well, we believe you truly need an inventory strategy on your new vehicles too, based on those segments of vehicles. And then that inventory strategy, in terms of how I want that inventory to look, what that profile looks like, then is going to be supported by a pricing strategy on those same segments. We need a pricing strategy for those individual inventory segments based on the key metrics of market day supply and price to market. You know, what is the competitive environment out there on the car, and where do I have to position that car to get visible in an appropriate position in the market? And then we need a promotion strategy to make sure that when we are visible, that we communicate those prices and incentives to attract the customers to our showroom. So we need to be able to promote that in a very compelling manner. And certainly then we want have a sales strategy that reflects that experience online, so that our customers' in-store experience is consistent with that online experience and supports what we promoted out there online. So basically, all those things go into Conquest. A lot of them are very, very similar in parallel to what we're trying to accomplish with our provision in the used vehicle market. So back to you, Lori.
All right. Thanks so much, John. And again, we'll have you back for the Q&A. Folks, I'm going to put up our third and final poll based on what you heard today. What will be your top challenge moving ahead? So we're going to ask you just pick one on this. Is it sales process strategy, salesperson recruiting, salesperson compensation, new car market based pricing, sales management, culture change? All right, let's see. Got 19% weighing in with sales process strategy, 25% salesperson recruiting, 8% salesperson compensation, 20% new car market-based pricing, and just by a little edge, the winner, 27% sales management, culture change. Very, very interesting results, and thank you for weighing in. And folks, as far as some next steps here, I've got, again, Mark's information on the screen if you'd like to reach out to him. Also, resources, weauto.com. That's the dealer resources site. This is where we will be posting the PDF version of the slides, and a link will go out to you in the form of an email. Also want to let you know, stay tuned for the next vAuto educational series webinar. You'll be getting an email invitation just like you did to this one. So just be on the lookout. And at this point, I would like to ask both Mark and John to step up to the virtual podium. And we're going to start with a question here for you, Mark. And Bill's asking, what happens to your sales volume when you move to this new sales process?
That's a great question. Here's what, when we've helped launch dealerships like this, what we do is make sure their initial pricing for at least 45, if not 60 days, is incredibly competitive. In other words, we're going to price the front ends till you sort of hurt. Having said that, the reason we do that is, number one, we want to get confidence in this new process by the salespeople so they know they're not going to lose deals over price for the most part. But number two, if our sales volume doesn't go up, when you've launched with this new process with highly competitive prices, then I have a process or personnel problem I've got to fix. So all of our dealers that have been successful using this type of process, their new car volume goes up initially for sure when they're doing all the right things. And again, some people will struggle. It's absolutely going to happen. And therefore, when we don't see that new vehicle volume going up initially, we know we got a people or process problem.
All right. Thanks, Mark. John, over to you. Scott's asking, how does how does Conquest support limited negotiation selling?
Well, yeah, and I would say it's gonna support it by putting a highly transparent and creditable number out to the marketplace. You know, if I understand what the market is on any given vehicle, and I'm prepared to validate that position with the customer in my sales process, I'm not going to feel either the need or will there be a strong demand from the customer's point of view to engage in negotiations. I mean, we know from the data that customers, even though we think they like it, we know from the data that Mark presented, and we know from the data from the industry that's absolutely not true. But what we need to do is support it with promotion and pricing out to the visible market out on the internet that you know is credible and we can validate in the showroom when they come in.
All right. Thanks, John. Mark, back over to you. Craig's asking, our manufacturer will not allow us to post or advertise prices that are lower than MSRP. We are allowed to price them in the showroom at less than MSRP. Do you have any thoughts or ideas?
Yeah, and again, we know there's 2 or 3 out there that have that policy. You know, certainly I would then promote more heavily. We want to transact how you want to transact. If you'd like to start the process from home, let me know, and we can start to communicate what our best price is, because they're going to find, if it's Honda, they're going to find everything at MSRP, or if it's BMW, I believe it's everything at MSRP. So you need to let them know that there is a better price out there, and that you're going to be very forthcoming and transparent in allowing that to happen.
All right, thanks so much. Got one more for you, Mark. Corey's asking, what is the typical front-end gross for a dealership that fully adopts the LNS model? Of
course, it varies by brand. BMW would have a different front-end gross than a Chrysler product would, but we tend to see it about $100 to $200 higher than the average gross in the marketplace. So if you're a Toyota dealer and you get a TOPS report that shows you what your forward-facing Toyota dealers are selling, average transaction price, you should be anywhere from $100 to $200 higher than that. And again, it certainly depends by market and by brand.
Okay. This one for you, John. How can this tool, and by tool I'm assuming we're talking Conquest, help me identify the best cars to stock?
Well, we're going to look at a variety of data points. First off, we're going to look at the dealership experience with different segments, different vehicles, down to a fairly granular level. And more important than that possibly is we're going to take and compare that to the actual market. How's the market performing on those same vehicles? And then we'll also provide comparative data on market day supply. So am I stocking the vehicles to address and mirror the market demand? And am I performing above or below those numbers? And I can watch that on a consistent basis so I can adapt my inventory profile to what customers are actually doing out in the market.
All right. One more for Mark. What about if you have a dealer in your market that just gives everything away?
Well, it seems like every market has one, and again, I gave some ways to compete against those low price, deep discounters, but what I don't want to do is compete the exact same way. So back to, if I don't have a sales process that's different and adds more value for the majority of the customers, then I'm only competing on price. So, I would go back, and if anybody wants to email me what I talked about how to compete against those deep discounters, I've actually written an article about that, and I'd be happy to send you the article that explains in much more detail than I could on the webinar how to do that competition. But things like, again, having more female sales associates, starting the internet process, and everybody's an internet buyer, and starting the process by letting the customer choose how they want to proceed. And I can guarantee you, again, those deep discounters are going to only want people in for appointments. They're not going to focus on sharing information before the customer gets to the store. So mystery shop them, obviously, as well.
All right, over to you, John. And Corey's asking, a concern with this product is the potential to accelerate the race to the bottom. What are your thoughts?
Well, yeah, and I would answer that question whether it's in Provision Suite or the Conquest product is basically the same way. It's not a race to the bottom, it's a race to the customer. At the end of the day, the customers, we know the customers are going to demand a certain level of communication and information on the internet that maybe before we used to provide in a store environment. We're going to have to adapt to that. There's no way around it. Certainly that transparent market and that visibility on the internet is going to present some challenges. It's going to present some strategic challenges and process challenges. But the reality is it's also an extraordinary opportunity. What we want to do is get to the customer before our competition, and there's no way to avoid positioning the car in a visible and appropriate manner. We just can't beat that. The internet's going to be there. It's going to keep moving forward. Customers are going to use it in their shopping processes for all products, so we're not being presented with something that's different than other industries. We definitely are going to have to be better at merchandising, and I think better at stocking too. So, having the right car and being able to present it in the right manner and get our customer engaged with that product in a very prompt and efficient manner is really what the goal is. So it really has nothing to do with a race to the bottom as much as a race to the customer.
Okay. Thank you. Over to you, Mark. Steve is asking, how does the finance department participate in the LNS model?
Great. Yeah, the best way to do it, the best practices, if you will, is to rate the customer with this very specific markup. So let's say I'm just giving you a broad example. So for everybody that rates out as a top tier or A customer, let's just call it an A customer, they're a half point over buy rate. B customer is 1 point over buy rate. C customer, 1.5 points. A D customer, 2, 2.5, whatever you want. So you start with consistent ratings. And again, another best practice is sort of a bank board out there where people can they can see where their credit rating puts them, which tier it puts them into, and that's the interest rate that they're going to get. So, matter of fact, in my client base, 93 cents out of every reserve dollar sticks. So because I'm rating people accurately, I have minimal chargebacks, typically only for repos and early payouts. And none of my clients, to my knowledge, are on a 75-25 split program with their lender unless it's demanded by the lender, because they're rating their people more accurately, therefore there's less chargebacks and no need to be on a split program. Also, because the salespeople are rewarded for F&I contracts, they're rewarded for service contracts, they're rewarded for aftermarket accessory sales, etc. Typically, again, $20 per category. They've got a vested interest in helping the F&I department and setting up the customer in a better manner for those type of products. So F&I does very well.
All right. Well, folks, I see that we're rubbing up against the top of the hour. So if you do have questions in the queue that we haven't gotten to, not to worry, we'll address them post-webinar. Before we do sign off, I'd like to take a moment to thank each of you for joining us. Trust that you found today to be of value. A very special thanks to Mark Reiches and John Griffin, and to the sponsor for today, vAuto. And most importantly, we thank you for joining us. This is Lori Dearman saying have a great rest of the week. Goodbye for now.